president has been very busy meeting with many key leaders and influencers discussing the better ways to help with the police issues. We uncover that and more on the Black Lives Matter lies and see more light on the past administration's spying problems. Father's Day is here, and you can now let Dad put floodlights anywhere he wants around the home or office without spending a fortune. The brand new ultra bright wireless floodlight with motion detectors makes it easy to light up all the dark spots in your yard. You can take out the trash in the evenings, emergency lights for evacuation, letting the dog out at night, sheds, gates, patios, and barns. Yet, best of all, you don't have to spend a fortune to do it. You can get a night solar light, wireless floodlights with motion detectors for as low as $13.64 each during Home Safety Week. That's a total of 52% off. Free shipping also, so visit nightsolarlight.com in the description box below or for Dad that perfect gift this Father's Day.
President, you've been nothing short of historic for Black America. I don't say that because I have to, because I can say whatever I want to say as a free citizen here in the U.S. You've been nothing short of historical. Criminal justice reform was historical. We were getting locked up at unprecedented rates. You undid the 1994 crime bill, and we are forever thankful for that. Even the opportunity zones, we can be critical of a lot of things, but the opportunity zones incentivize the people that had money to put the money where we needed it most, which are in these urban and rural neighborhoods. HBCUs, the whole bit, I can go down thing after thing. The current issue that we're having right now is police reform, which is so much needed. We did criminal justice reform, but police reform is the gateway to what we see as an unjust criminal justice system sometimes. Meaning, if a crooked cop doesn't do a terrible, corrupt thing with an individual, we never get into that bad system. This administration has been marred by a crooked cop like James Comey and others going after you and creating things that just were not there. The impeachment it's not real. But they can do that. And our community has been affected by that in a way that it's hard to explain. I tell people this all the time. This whole situation with just policing, it's not new to Black people. We've been used to it. As a kid, I got harassed by the police all the time, and I think I was a good kid. But it's a part of our community. And so we do need some things to happen on the police reform side, which will connect with the great things you've already done historically in criminal justice reform. And we know that you're the president to get it done. We know that we need some banking reform so that we can get more access to capital. We do also understand that we need some holistic approaches to create this ecosystem. Voting rights. Blacks have to go to get voting rights every 25 years or so now. These are things that are historic, and we believe that you are the president to get these things done for the black community. You've done some great things for us already, and we're relying on you, and we appreciate everything you've done, Mr. President. You've been amazing.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Well.
Pretty amazing. That was Kareem D. Lanier. He's on Twitter at RealKareemDream. Born in the hood, no father, mother hooked on crack cocaine when I was 12 years old, he says. I've seen racism in every form and disavow it emphatically. And he is the Urban Revitalization Coalition, working with White House's DPC, NEC, and OAI for urban policies. That was interesting because the president met with the black leaders at the White House Wednesday when they urged the administration to support policing reforms and shared ideas about other initiatives to benefit black communities. It was interesting because that was ahead of the Dallas meeting that he held also. We had Q drop 4448, Black Lives Matter only when they need your vote. Joe Biden was in for 51 years, entered politics in 1969. Chuck Schumer, 45 years. Nancy Pelosi, 33 years. Patrick Leahy, 54 years. Maxine Waters, 47 years. Dianne Feinstein, 60 years. And you're blaming this guy, Donald J. Trump. He entered politics in 2015, 3 years in government for problems they haven't solved for decades. As a matter of fact, they create the problems so they can line their pockets, and that's my opinion. Well, also on the right, you'll notice that Q Post had a link to a video from @SamanthaMarika1. We're going to watch her video near the very end of this video, so stay tuned. It's absolutely brilliant what she says. We're at 323,000 subscribers. Thank you. Our backup channel, and we know too, has our live interviews. I'll be doing interviews with folks here pretty soon, weekly. We'll be keeping you updated there. We're on DropSpace. Also, andweknow.com. That's where you can get the latest and sign up to receive notifications when we release videos. Our store is in the description box below. They won't let me put the link on the videos anymore for you guys to easily click on, thanks to this platform, YouTube. So we're also on Twitter at @AndWeKnow and Facebook. Thank you so much for joining us there. So, folks, you know, the NSA CSS said in a quote, "We began the ability for us to defend the presidential elections not today, not 6 months from now. We began it the day after the midterm elections." General Paul Nakasone. Pretty cool. Find out how we've been working to protect the 2020 presidential election, and there's a link to a story. Now, Q dropped that link. NSA stopped the D's ability to cheat electronically. So check this out. What happens when the D's can no longer cheat electronically? Push vote by mail? Question mark. Q. Now, I've brought this up several times in recent videos. I found it amazing myself that they were pushing everybody to vote by mail, and I thought, well, what happened to those rigged machines? You guys know we talked about that in some of the interviews that I've done with the Mac Files and also with Red Pill 78. I found it just amazing that Q finally dropped something to show us that, yes, those machines are finally cleaned up. So, well, it's a question, but in my opinion, they're cleaned up based on that question. All right, here we go. Steve Guest put out last night's primaries were an emphatic reminder of the enthusiasm for real Donald Trump's agenda that is sweeping the nation. President Trump added to his undefeated 73-0 record of candidate endorsements in congressional primary and special elections this cycle. More winning. Q4455 was dropped using this 73-0 marker also, and highlighted that NSA drop. We began the ability for us to defend the presidential elections not today, not 6 months from now. We began it the day after the midterm elections. And again, those questions. What happens when the D's can no longer cheat electronically? Push vote by mail. What event was necessary to provide cover for the push of voting by mail? Well, we know the event that was necessary, the one that they released on all of us, was the virus. And we're going to uncover that even more proof that that's what they wanted. So Kayleigh McEnany had something to say about this in her press brief yesterday.
The president seems pretty unconcerned so far about November and the COVID situation, whether people are going to be afraid to go to polls or whether there's going to be a lot of delays because of the COVID. He recently said it's a long way off, I think meaning that the pandemic would have died down by then, essentially. But given that it hasn't actually gone away, people are obviously still dying every day and there are some spikes, and it's not that far away, 5 months. Are any measures being taken at all to guarantee that this election is going to go smoothly and everyone who wants to vote can vote?
Yeah, well, I've not seen much criticism of the protest and socially distance and mitigation efforts.
About the election, not
I
protest.
think there's a way to safely vote if you can safely protest, and that's what the president would like to see. There's a way to safely vote. There's a way to safely go to church, and you're asking a hypothetical about something 5 months from now at a time, ironically, when the media hasn't expressed much outrage about a lack of mitigation efforts taken by some of the protesters.
That's right. So she brought up exactly what we've been saying. The things that the protesters do, they get by with, and the media doesn't want to talk about. As a matter of fact, through further questioning, I put the link in the description box below of this particular press conference. You'll catch them try to say, well, now, that the epidemic or the virus seems to be coming back from the Memorial Day celebrations in the Ozarks. They try to point to that, saying that that's why the virus might return. Well, it's amazing. Q dropped this, and Tucker Carlson nails it. It's a very long video, so I only put a few minutes on that particular video, but you can find the entire thing in the description box below. But the quote that they want us to focus on, we were all played. Corrupt politicians scared us into our giving up control over the most basic questions in our lives. At the same time, they gave more power to their obedient followers like Antifa while keeping the rest of us trapped at home and censored online. Virus or election, question mark. Virus or excuse to push vote by mail. Folks, they need voting by mail because they lost those machines. They lost the ability to cheat. They lost the ability to lie everybody and make them believe that they actually won all of these elections for all of these years. They're losing their power for the first time ever, and they're in panic mode. Let's listen to this.
Millions of Americans remain subjected to unprecedented restrictions on their personal lives, their daily lives, their families' lives. The coronavirus lockdowns continue in many places. You may not know that because it gets no publicity, but it's true. And if you're living under it, you definitely know. As a result of this, tens of millions of people are now unemployed. A huge number of them have no prospects of working again. Many thousands of small businesses are closed and will never reopen. More Americans have become dependent on drugs and alcohol, seen their marriages dissolve, become clinically depressed. Some of them delayed their weddings. Others were banned by the government from burying their loved ones in funerals. Some Americans will die of cancer because they couldn't get cancer screenings. Some unknown number have taken their own lives in despair. Others have flooded the streets to riot because bottled up rage and frustration take many forms. The cost of shutting down the United States and denying our citizens desperately needed contact with one another is hard to calculate, but the cost has been staggering. The people responsible for doing all of this say they have no regrets about it. We faced a global calamity, they say. COVID-19 was the worst pandemic since the Spanish flu. That flu killed 50 million people. We had no choice. We did the right thing. That's what they're telling us. Is it true? The answer to that question matters not just because the truth always matters, but because the credibility of our leaders is at stake here. This is the biggest decision they have made in our lifetimes. They were able to make it. They rule because we let them. Their power comes from us. So the question now and always is, are they worthy of that power? That's not a conversation they want to have. And right now they don't have to have that conversation because right now all of us are distracted and mesmerized by the woke revolution underway outside. They just created a separate country in Seattle, huh? And as we said, we'll bring you the latest on that in just a minute. But we do think it's worth, for a minute, taking a pause to assess whether or not they were in fact lying to us about the coronavirus and our response to it. And the short answer is this: yes, they were definitely lying. As a matter of public health, we can say conclusively the lockdowns were not necessary. In fact, we can prove that. And here's the most powerful evidence. States that never locked down at all, states where people were allowed to live like Americans and not cower indoors alone, in the end turned out no worse than states that had mandatory quarantines, the state you probably live in. The states that did lock down at first but were quick to reopen have not seen explosions of coronavirus cases. All of this is the opposite of what they said would happen, with great confidence. The media predicted mass death at places like Lake of the Ozarks and Ocean City, Maryland, places where the middle class dares to vacation. But those deaths never happened. In the end, the Wuhan coronavirus turned out to be a dangerous disease, but a manageable disease like so many others. Far more dangerous were the lockdowns themselves. For example, in New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Massachusetts, panicked and incompetent governors forced nursing homes to accept infected coronavirus patients. And as a result, many thousands died, and they died needlessly. This is all a remarkable story, but it's going almost entirely uncovered. The media would rather tell you why you need to hate your neighbor for the color of his skin. The media definitely don't want to revisit what they were saying just a few weeks ago when they were acting as press agents for power-drunk Democratic politicians. Back then, news anchors were ordering you to stop asking questions and obey.
All right, so while most Americans are staying inside, or should be, right, if they're not out protesting like fools, they're not happy about being told to stay home. Staying home saves lives. And the rest of us should be staying at home for our mothers and the people that we love. And to keep us farther apart will ultimately bring us closer together in this cause. Our collective, conscientious actions. Staying home.
Oh, if you love your mother, you will do what I say. Turns out cable news anchors don't make very subtle propagandists. And then Memorial Day arrived in May, and some states started to reopen. Millions of grateful Americans headed outdoors for the first time in months, and the media attacked them for doing that, called them killers. Swimming with your kids, they told us, was tantamount to mass murder.
Jam-packed pool parties at the Lake of the Ozarks Resort and other places over the holiday weekend. Few, if any, people were wearing masks or practicing social distancing. Hardly.
Packed into overcrowded pools despite the ongoing pandemic. Let's face it, the weirdness of being that bunched up in what looks like a kind of human stew.
Frankly, a lot of the people in those crowds, they thought they were, standing up for what the president believes in. And that is not to care about the public safety part of this.
Look at this. I mean, this is kind of crazy considering we're in the middle of a global pandemic. I mean, as one person quipped, that's curving the curve. That's not flattening it.
A massive crowd of people crammed together as if it were just an ordinary holiday weekend, despite the risks of a virus that has killed more than 98,000 people.
Pretty sad, right? This video continues on and on as he continues to expose these folks and their lies and what they're trying to do to keep us staying at home to do these vote-by-mail elections. Jason Buttrill on Twitter said, when you click to donate to Black Lives Matter, it takes you to Act Blue. If donated money goes unclaimed, Act Blue disperses the money however they want. These are their top expenditures so far in 2020, and he has that list for you right there, folks. Bernie 2020, 186 million plus. Biden for president, 119 million plus. Elizabeth Warren, 93 million. Pete for America, 78 million. Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, 55 million. Amy for America, and on the list goes. So you donate to Black Lives Matter, look where all that money goes. Jason Buttrill is the former intelligence analyst for DOD, geopolitical analyst and head writer, chief researcher for the Glenn Beck program, United States Marine URA. Q4459 was dropped with that Twitter post. The hole runs deep. Q. It sure does. It's all about that election, folks. And hypocrisy is at its greatest here, as Real Deal Axelrod shows us here.
Think they doing the right thing and they getting their point across, but they really not. They making it worse for black people. They making it worse. They making it worse.
I got a bone to pick with this whole Donald Trump don't like black people all of a sudden thing, in the midst of all of this mayhem. If Donald Trump didn't like black people, he would have never, ever been on the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. If Donald Trump didn't like black people, he wouldn't have appeared in Bobby Brown's music video. If Donald Trump didn't like black people, he would have never, ever hung out with Muhammad Ali and Rosa Parks. If Donald Trump didn't like black people, he would not have gotten an award from Jesse Jackson about how much he is appreciated in the black community. If Donald Trump didn't like black people, him and Al Sharpton wouldn't be taking photographs of him, with his arm around him, thumbs up and whatever and whatnot. If Donald Trump didn't like black people, he would have never had a black girlfriend. He would have never had a black girlfriend if he didn't like black people. You listen to what I'm saying. If Donald Trump didn't like black people, he sure in the hell when they got them three bastards, remember them three boys they got caught stealing over in China, whatever, whatnot, he would have told them lock they deserve to go to jail. If Donald Trump didn't like black people. Far as I'm concerned, he liked black people more than some black people like black people.
Welcome to the D Party Con. So continuing on with the D Party and what they're up to with their tricks, Q4458 was dropped. Why are the Democrats attempting to remove their past as Confederates? ? Knowing the past helps to understand the present. Welcome to the D Party Con continues. Not only are they losing all of their election numbers and their support, They are falling apart, so they need to make sure that folks don't know that they actually are the party of slavery. Nancy Pelosi put out, the statues which fill the halls of Congress should reflect our highest ideals as Americans. Today, I'm once again calling for the removal from the U.S. Capitol of the 11 statues representing Confederate soldiers and officials. These statues pay homage to hate, not heritage. Well, that's what Nancy belongs to, because we have the proof with this Q drop post. Confederate general becomes Secretary of Senate, August 7, 1893. If you do your research and more, you'll find out who the Democrat Party really belongs to, and it exposes them even more. So let's see what Kayleigh McEnany had to say as the White House tries to question her, not White House, the media tries to ask her questions about renaming the military bases named after Confederate generals. It was in the New York Times, Politico, and more.
I would also note, where do you draw the line here? I'm told that no longer can you find on HBO Gone with the Wind, because somehow that is now offensive. Where do you draw the line? Should George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and James Madison be erased from history? What about FDR and his internment camps? Should he be erased from history, or Lyndon Johnson, who has a history of documented racist statements? And finally, what about people that are alleged by the media to be segregationists? NBC tells us Joe Biden didn't just compromise with segregationists, he fought for their causes in schools, experts say. CNN tells us letters from Joe Biden reveal how he sought support of segregationists in the fight against busing. Washington Post tells us that Biden's tough talk on 1970s schools desegregation plans could get him new scrutiny, and there are several more where that came from. So I'll leave you with the question, should we then rename the Biden Welcome Center? Thanks very much, guys.
Should we rename the Biden Welcome Center? It's outstanding. She packs up and off she goes, leaving them to do their homework once again. Of course, they don't want to do their homework. They've already done it. They are the product of lies, and the media is the enemy of the people. Q445. DNI Ratcliffe has declassified docs related to Russiagate and ordered them sent to Congress. So the Ds are not only in trouble on the voting side, election side, they're trying to scurry around because they're in big trouble as they continue to get exposed for their spying on the Trump campaign before he became the president. We had Follow the Pen, Q. Christina Wong was on Twitter saying soon DNI Ratcliffe has declassified those documents, found this from Sean Hannity interviewing Solomon.
Breaking news tonight in our quest for equal justice. John Solomon reporting that congressional Republicans are now planning what is a wave of brand new criminal referrals stemming from the Russia hoax. He joins us now with the latest. John, if you can explain this through the context and the prism of the testimony, the blockbuster testimony of Rod Rosenstein, knowing what I know now, no, I wouldn't have signed those FISA warrants. Premeditated fraud on a FISA court. Then we have the House Intelligence Committee testimonies that we now get to go back and see. And a lot of people probably did things like what, Roger Stone was accused of, and Paul Manafort, and Michael Cohen, and George Papadopoulos, right?
Exactly. What you're going to see are as many as 10 referrals asking the Justice Department to investigate key figures in the Russia case for lying to Congress, leaking classified information, and engaging in misconduct in both the Crossfire Hurricane investigation and the Mike Flynn investigation. The reason these referrals are possible now is because Attorney General Barr and former Director of National Intelligence Rick Grinnell made available evidence that calls into question a lot of the earlier stories we were given from the FBI figures.
Yeah, that's right. It's absolutely amazing. That Axiom report said as many as 10 new criminal referrals to DOJ by the House. As early as tomorrow, is what he said, we could get a new declassification out the ODNI containing these annexed to original intel assessment of Russia, saying all intel agencies knew Steele info was bogus. Well, Q dropped 4452 with another and Catherine Herridge drop on Twitter. First obtained CBS News declassified Annex A intelligence community assessment 2016 Russia election interference cites Steele dossier. Alleges, quote, President-elect and his top campaign advisors knowingly worked with Russian officials to bolster his chances and were offered financial compensation, unquote. Mueller did not substantiate, not credible enough for intel community to use in body of report, but the FBI still used the dossier 3 more times to renew Carter Page's surveillance warrant. Requested Chuck Grassley, Senator Ron Johnson released the DNI. Absolutely amazing. And there's these documents. You can see these in the description box below, but everything she just said, it's showing right there and highlighted once again for us to see. So Q4456 dropped this. The Senate Judiciary gives Lindsey Graham sweeping subpoena powers in review of the Russia probe. The committee approved 1210 today. Why it matters. Graham now has sweeping authority to subpoena documents and more than 50 individuals related to the Russia investigation, including former FBI Director James Comey, former CIA Director John Brennan, and former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper. Q. Let's hope that Graham fulfills what we have been waiting for a long time. So it continues. Senator Ron Johnson, I've got him on the right there. Republican members, including Graham, are especially focused on errors that Horowitz uncovered in the FBI's applications for wiretaps of former Trump campaign advisor Carter Page. Quote, I assure you, we're not going to be deterred, Graham said at Thursday's hearing. If we have to do it by ourselves, we'll do it by ourselves. I want to know why all these counterintelligence investigations were opened to begin with. The big picture, Johnson and Graham have said they plan to issue reports before November's election. They said before. The Justice Department is also conducting a sweeping criminal investigation led by veteran prosecutor John Durham, which Attorney General Bill Barr has signaled could result in indictments filed before the election. Before the election. I'll say it one more time. Before the election. Let's hope for that, folks. Q4457 was dropped. You hold Senate hearings after the public has digested the declassified information. And Anand said, finally, now we can have real hearings instead of the sham, scam hearings in the decontrolled House. That was copied and pasted at TruthSoldier411 on Twitter for us to see. Folks, you could take these things, copy and paste them on your Twitter feed and get this information out in hashtag Where We Go One, We Go All worldwide, or hashtag QAnon. Logical thinking. Do you hold hearings before or after select items are declassed? How do you exert maximum pressure publicly? Senate was the target.
Okay, so let's talk about those who think that this is not legit. Senator Dianne Feinstein, top Democrat there on the committee, says, I can't support this kind of dragnet authority to conduct politically motivated investigations. How do you respond?
I think that one of the things for her to remember is that when you have the amount of wrongdoing that was done through the Russia collusion hoax and what President Donald Trump has lived with every day, you need to get to the bottom of this. We have had the Horowitz report. We know a certain amount of things that have been done. DOJ has reversed what the charges on Michael Flynn. And Shannon, what taxpayers want to know is who cooked up this plot, who decided that it should be carried out, who did the dirty work, how did it end up in an Oval Office meeting on January 5th. So there are 39 people that were involved in this plot. There are 14 that were involved in the unmasking, and in order to get to the bottom of this, and bear in mind, this was a taxpayer paid for conspiracy. It was the Department of Justice and the FBI, the premier law enforcement agency. Of course, people want to know, how did this happen? How did they get those FISA warrants? And how was it they knew that dossier was not legit, but yet you had them use it for the FISA warrants? And I will tell you this, the hearing we did last week with Rod Rosenstein, that left more questions unanswered than answered. And it raised some questions that people want to know. How could you have possibly been running the DOJ and could not have known? You had your questions about what Andy McCabe was telling you, but you never said, hey, are you telling me the whole truth on this? Are you hiding anything? You know, Rod Rosenstein thought, hey, he's not really forthcoming. Something's not right.
Way to go, Senator Blackburn. Just love what she has to say. Absolutely amazing leader there. Well, we started with the talk about Black Lives Matter, the leadership meetings that President Trump is having, what they're trying to do on the Democrat side to steal the election and stay in power. And I promise to end with a video that's absolutely amazing from Samantha Marika 1.
2 weeks ago, you were unable to have a funeral. If your mom, if your dad, if your grandma died, they couldn't have a funeral. And if you did try to have a funeral, you could have been arrested. You fast forward 2 weeks later, you turn on the television and there's a giant funeral, a giant memorial for George Floyd. Celebrities and politicians all there. The same people for the past couple months who were telling you if you were to go into a group of people, you could have died because of COVID-19. And here they sit at this giant funeral. A funeral in which George Floyd probably only knew 1/3 of the people actually there. A funeral in which became political. Al Sharpton was up there saying, we're going to take the White House. George Floyd's funeral became political. 2 to 3 days after that man was murdered, they told you to go vote. A week after that man was murdered, first day of primaries. And what did you do? You went out and voted. Blue, 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 just like the script told you to. Hashtag vote. Vote, 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 all over Instagram, all over Twitter. Everybody, vote, 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 vote. Why? Have you asked yourself why? What is voting going to do? We had a black president and this still happened. You think voting is going to solve racism? You're being used. You think they broadcasted George Floyd's funeral all to America because they wanted to show what a great person George Floyd was? Or do you think they broadcasted George Floyd's funeral because they wanted you to watch? So you would get angry, you would get sad, you would get mad, you would get frustrated, and you would go vote.
Way to go, Samantha Marika. Q4450. Do Anons understand what is about to be unleashed? Q.
For nothing is secret that shall not be made manifest, neither anything hid that shall not be known and come abroad.
Let's pray. Father in heaven, we thank you once again as we're in a turning point in our nation. We're starting to see the enemy on its heels, and we are thankful to you for your continued answer to prayer, protecting our president and using him to guide our nation, not only our nation, but other leaders around the world, to go towards the truth and to release us from this condemnation and suppression that we've been under for so long. We ask, Lord, for your continued guidance and wisdom to be granted to our president, for the leadership around him to stay tuned to you as we continue to go and take this ginormous ship through the seas of this storm. We ask for continued protection over him, for his family, and for protection over our families all around the world as we continue to wake up to what has been in front of us for so long. For it's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen. If you like this video, please hit that like button and share. Sharing gets around the algorithm set up to destroy this channel. Thank you for the comments below. We're so grateful for those. And for going to our store, it's in the description box below. You can click on the merchandise there. Thank you for the great PayPal donations. So wonderful. And for our patrons, we can't thank you enough for how you support us monthly. For now, this is LT with And We Know, signing out.